The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry into alleged political interference in the criminal justice system heard fresh testimony today that points to a pattern of pressure on prosecutors dating back to at least 2018. Advocate Thandi Mokoena, a senior NPA official who resigned last year, told the commission that she was instructed by a senior politician to drop charges against a prominent businessman linked to the ruling party. She refused, and within weeks her security clearance was flagged for review. The commission's evidence leader pressed her on dates and names, and the record now shows 3 separate meetings between Mokoena and the politician in question during the first half of 2019. This sits against a timeline that began in March last year when the commission was formally gazetted after months of legal wrangling. Early sittings focused on the 2015 to 2017 period, with retired judges and former directors of public prosecutions describing how dockets involving state tenders were repeatedly referred back for further investigation, without clear reason. By July, the focus shifted to more recent cases, including the handling of the VBS Mutual Bank prosecutions. Today's evidence closed one of those loops by linking the 2019 pressure on Mokoena directly to the same network of influence that had slowed the VBS cases 3 years earlier. What stood out in today's session was the Commission's willingness to name individuals rather than hide behind generic references to certain political figures. The chair, Justice Madlanga, allowed Mokoena to read an extract from her contemporaneous notes that included a direct quote from the politician. "You don't want to be the one who sinks the ship." That line has already been entered into the record and will almost certainly feature in the Commission's interim report due in November. Critics will say the Commission is moving too slowly and that today's revelations, while serious, still rest on one witness's word against another. That is fair. No documentary trail of the alleged instruction has yet been produced, and the politician named has not yet been given an opportunity to respond. At the same time, the Commission has already secured testimony from 4 other former prosecutors who described similar patterns of interference. When those accounts are placed next to the paper trail of delayed prosecutions, the cumulative weight becomes harder to dismiss as isolated incidents. The urgency comes from the fact that several of the matters still under discussion involve cases that are either on the court roll or about to be. If the Commission's findings are to have any practical effect, they need to reach the NPA and the courts before further dockets go cold. Today's evidence at least keeps the timeline tight. The interference described by Mokoena occurred after the formal start of the Zondo Commission, which suggests that the lessons from that earlier inquiry were not fully absorbed. What remains unclear is how far the Commission will push into the role of the executive in these decisions. So far it has stayed within the bounds of the terms of reference, sticking to the actions of officials and politicians rather than broader questions of policy. That narrow focus is probably wise if the goal is to produce findings that can actually be acted on. Still, the picture emerging is consistent. Decisions about who gets prosecuted have, on more than one occasion, been shaped by considerations that had little to do with the strength of the evidence. The Commission resumes tomorrow with a different witness, this time from the South African Police Service. The thread running through both today's and tomorrow's evidence is the same: the point at which political direction crosses into operational interference. How Justice Madlanga and his team draw that line will determine whether this inquiry ends up as another thick report on a shelf or as something that actually changes how cases are handled.